Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to wherever you are in the world. Welcome once again to RCI Mondays on RCI TV, live on Twitch and YouTube. And we're bringing you another region locked car choice. And once again, it's time for the final of Euro Masters. Tonight, we're bringing you round five from Paul Ricard, 5.77 kilometers in length. 13 turns. I'm your lead commentator for tonight. And alongside me isn't Callum Kerwin, it's actually Jesse Lee, with Stewie behind the cameras. And of course, as always, the live stewards. Welcome, everyone.
Well, that's a rousing introduction, John Dalton. Hello, everybody at home. This is a unique opportunity for me, a fan of this series. I watch it every single week. Now I get to be here for the finale as well. What an absolute treat. Let's first of all, John, let's talk about Hugo Colot. What an incredible championship they've had so far.
Yeah, absolutely solid performance from Hugo Colot. And of course, last time out of the Nürburgring, we saw him take another race win for the race esports team. Dan Edvardson coming in second and Rafael Malho taking third place. Big points lead at the moment for this man here on your screens. And all he's got to do is really keep Rafael Malho in his sights. But of course, as always, Jesse, more on the championship standings later on tonight.
Yeah, of course, we will bring you the full championship standings, but just an incredible job Hugo's been able to do. Their lone race where they didn't win it, they finished second place. It will take some doing to best him here tonight, if even it is possible. Qualifying underway here, 9:01 p.m. The sun's still out here in France, and Paul Ricard, love it or hate it, it has created some fantastic racing. One thing about qualifying here, it's usually very close.
Yeah, typically quite a close. It's been quite a close practice so far, actually, with the manufacturers on show. Of course, anybody familiar to ACC knows that the Porsche is quite bad in a straight line. However, watching the Barless Esports team, they seem to have fixed that, but then they have some very big instabilities through a lot of the turns. So keep eyes on them. Seen plenty of drifts, plenty of oversteer tonight, but we ran on board right now with Hugo Colot, the championship leader for the race esports team. Of course, very long drag now down the Mistral Straight, so a crucial point of the circuit is, of course, turn 7. Really want to get a good run out of there to try and carry as much speed down the straight as you can. We're probably going to see slipstreaming coming into effect here tonight, of course, with such a long drag. We've been speaking for a good 30 seconds or so, and we're only just rounding to the end of the straight, into the fastest corner of the circuit. Dab of the brakes, down a gear, over the inside curve, very flat. Be very careful of the white bollards on the outside. Keep to the right hand side and you should be good for track limits. Now this corner feels like it goes on forever, punishes the front left tire of the car, generates a lot of heat, a lot of pressure, so be very careful with your steering inputs through there. Back the other way now, again an equally as long left-hander, a little bit slower, tire load a little bit lower, and of course with the track temperatures tonight being 22 degrees C, it's fairly cool in relative terms to what we have seen at Paul Ricard. And then a very tricky last sector, kind of got to position the car very well for the last turn. Some drivers choose to shorten off the corner, other drivers choose to go a little bit wider and try and get a better exit down to the start finish line. But Hugo Colot with the first time on the board tonight, we go for a 1:54.007. James Bond himself across the line, Jesse.
Nice benchmark lap of 54.007, and quite interestingly enough, everyone coming across the line well and truly off of that pace for lap number 1. Rafael Malo comes across to just about a quarter of a second or so off the pace. Pedro Mark through into third, Downing and Daly. Now, Jordan Daly's an interesting character here tonight. He had to set out all racing over the weekend, John. Didn't have, his equipment wasn't working appropriately. He's been able to rectify that apparently. He's in the field tonight.
Yeah, definitely a driver to keep your eye on, Jordan Daly. When the race does go his way, does generate some absolutely stonking results, but just keeps running into bad luck, it seems, Jesse, in the RCI Mondays anyway. He's never too far up the grid, but he's always lurking, ready to pounce in case a mistake is made. And of course, racing him just a few weeks ago in the British GT Championship in GT4. Yeah, again, he had a solid performance there, but always caught out by bad luck. As you look to the Porsche Speedo here, 276 on the Porsche Speedo. But then look at the steering inputs through this corner, constantly soaring at the wheel. Big arm for opposite lock, fires to the inside. Very close for Pozniakov there. Definitely ruined his lap there, Jesse.
Sure did ruin the lap. Luckily, didn't ruin anybody else's lap. Nobody around him when that happened, but that's how quickly it can all come undone, and it certainly did for them on that particular corner. Let's take a look at what happened. This is not Polachuk. Oh, this is Polachuk. Okay, I thought we were going to see two different cars. Thought we were going to see the other replay, but still another invalidation in quick succession up in the Scene corner.
Yeah, these are Barlas esports team. They seem to have trimmed a lot of wing and a lot of aero off these Porsches. So they're very quick down the straight line. They can hit 276, but just through the fast bends, they just have such instability. So, of course, the race tonight being an hour, it's going to be interesting to see if they can keep this thing in the straight and narrow and between the white lines. Of course, consistency is king, as we know, Jesse, even over a 1 hour sprint race.
Just being told, by the way, that Pavlov's lap, was actually valid after all of that. Stayed inside the bollards and didn't go too far off of the racetrack. It was a slow lap, but it was at least a valid lap and no Code Brown moment for sure.
Yeah, can't say the same for his teammate Pozniakov. Massive Code Brown moment as we saw him at the top of the Mistral Straight, and now he begins his charge once again down to the corner that did give him so many problems earlier on. I'm very surprised to see, of course, we've got two teammates here with the Barlas Esports. They're not generating any kind of slipstreaming kind of thing. You know, sometimes we see teams at Monza tow another car along essentially to try and get a better run as he pitches it in, keeps it off the inside curb this time. Still a bit of a nasty bounce on the outside curb, but this corner here is where they've had a lot of trouble as well. You can just see him working the wheel, just tweaking it in, trying to find the balance of the car, almost kind of oversteering the car to get it through the corner and turned in with the lack of wing. It's just not gripping probably the way they want to, and once again jumps to the power, straightens up the wheel straight away, almost drifting the car around Paul Ricard tonight, Jesse.
Anytime you come to Paul Ricard, you make a conscious decision. Am I going to trim the car out to be quick down the Mistral Straight, or do I put a little bit of extra downforce and suffer every time I hit one of the longest straights in all of motorsport? I think it's quite obvious from what we've seen tonight. A couple of the cars have gone all aerodynamic tonight. Pozniakov in the 86 up to P3. That was a lot better lap that time. 4/10 off of the provisional pole, Kolot, but still a very nice time. Can't wait to see his teammate. Where's Polachuk down in 14th place? Look for them to move up a little bit as well.
Yeah, definitely struggling. I think obviously teammates tend to share setup tweaks between each other. Doesn't always work for the other driver, of course, driving styles being very different. Polachuk definitely has a little bit more pace in him here, as we see Roskam rounding out the final turn, the number 96 Rebound racing car using the World Tour livery, and he improves up into P11 with a 154.847. Very careful on the pit exit, as we know can be quite awkward. BMW there staying well out of the way, I believe. Possibly Richard Whittle in that car. Riding on board now with Jordan Daly, the only Mercedes, I think, tonight in the field. And Mercedes not really with a strong manufacturer's presence here at the Euro Masters, as he now begins his run down the Mistral Straight. Jesse, any bets on his top speed?
Well, I would hazard the guess that we're going to get to about 272.
272 from Jesse Lee, as we see the Speedo tip 270, 271, 272. Jesse's definitely kind of on the money, 273 and 4, and then it kind of stalls out and stops itself, but looks a little bit more stable, I was going to say, through the fast bend, although big armful of opposite lock on the entrance, at least. Of course, the Mercedes AMG GT3 Evo with the anti-dive technology on the kind of front end that kind of keeps the balance much more level when you shift all the weight forward. And now we ride on board with Rafael Malho in the Audi R8, tips 270 and kind of gets a little bit stuck there at 271 before dabbing the brakes for the corner. So maybe the Audis are doing it all in the corners, and might see them get swallowed up on the straights, especially off the line. If somebody can stay very close to them, use the slipstream to their advantage all the way down the Mistral, might get ahead. And then obviously track position, we know, is quite key in ACC.
It sure is. And of course, you know, if you have a deficit to make, and it's going to be a big one for Casiaro in the 54, and they just about keep it out of the wall, but a huge opposite lock and another victim. Hate to say this, they're all in Porsches, it looks like, John.
Yeah, Porsche is certainly the manufacturer that looks very unstable. Pozniakov somehow managed to hustle his car around at a 154.4, but doing that over an hour is going to be pretty tricky. BMW M4 we see stalls out at about 272 for Matthew Kingston Lee for the kind of big yellow taxi livery on that one. Wrestles it through the tricky double apex right-hander, but the M4 we know is a very stable platform. It's quite consistent over curbs, very forgiving in its driving nature, so probably a good choice for tonight. Of course, Paul Ricard with some very flat curbs. You can probably really abuse the limits of them.
Absolutely. Some cars, of course, can abuse the curbs. Others can't even look at them wrong without going sideways. We've seen that already in this quali session so far. 3.5 minutes or thereabout left to go in quali. A lot of time left out there for some of these drivers. For Pedro Marquez, a little more than a couple of hundredths gets him one spot. Look at the top speed in this car. That was 278 Ks down the Mistral straight. That is absolutely flying in that Lamborghini Huracan.
Yeah, the Lamborghini definitely the one to kind of have here. 278, the highest top speed we've seen, and that is of course without a slipstream. So you know, once these cars start kind of bunching up and racing together, it's going to be interesting to see how the Lamborghini kind of pulls out of the corner before. Might see the Porsche much better initially, and then the Lamborghini starts kind of, you know, covering itself back in essentially in the slipstream. Tom Shipston, one of the two Ferraris in the field tonight, the other of course driven by Nico Kumpu. Speedo in the top right hand side of the Motec, 275, 77, 78, 79, 280 on the clock for the Ferrari, and just about tickled 281 before a dab of the brakes. So Ferrari looking quite strong as well. It seems like it's an Italian top speed fest tonight.
Yeah, both the Italian manufacturers looking very good in a straight line here tonight. And of course, they're all inside the top 10 as well. Nothing to complain about for all them. And of course, if you are Pedro Marquez, if you are Shipston or Nico Kumpu, you have to like your odds. If you're really that much quicker in a straight line and you're already starting inside the top 10, the likelihood of you getting a couple of spots early when everyone's bunched up goes through the roof.
Yeah, especially with the slipstream down the Mistral straight. We know obviously how long it is. It just keeps kind of going forever. Of course, no chicanes like in F1 to break up the top speed. Andy Boardman tickles just about 272 before a dab of the brakes and chucking it in to the very fast right-hander. Keeps the right side of the bollard. You can see how bumpy it is on the helmet cam, and just trying to work the steering wheel through the double right-hander. And something we've not touched on yet tonight, but always with Paul Ricard, Jesse, the track limit scenario, should we say, is always a topic that raises its head as Hugo Colot tickles into the 153, his first drive to do so, 153.772, cementing the kind of pole position time a little bit more, if you like. You know, just over a minute in qualifying to go. Some of these guys still have another stab at it, although clock's ticking, Jesse, and not many more laps to go.
Well, Rafael Malo got a little bit too close for comfort for Hugo Colot, and I think they knew there was a little bit more time left out there, and who knows, there might even still be a little bit more left if you really push it, but a 53.7 is a really fast time. Pozniakov comes across the line at a 53.950. Only two cars in the 53s now, but Hugo Colot certainly has stayed out on the racetrack, and I think is going to have to finish out this lap just in it for defensive reasons.
Yeah, Pozniakov finds a little bit more time. He is going to lock himself into the pole position. Chris Downing's M4 with a 277 kilometer an hour, but a very big envelope opposite lock. Very well saved by the Volpers SimSport driver, although probably not what you want for the Pirellis coming into the second half of your qualifying lap. And obviously down in P10, Chris Downing, certainly one that should be improving, hopefully, this time around.
Well, huge bit of opposite lock, but able to save it. And, well, we can have a threat for pole position here if we continue. But late and Cola hasn't made it to the line yet. No, he's in the final sector of the track, and that will be it for the 14 as Kolon has invalidated his lap. Oh, and it's not going to go right for poor Pozniakov either, as the second time it's happened in this qualifying session. The Team Ballas Esports 86 car going for pole position, going for broke, and absolutely lost it up at the top end of the circuit.
Yeah, it was point 0.3 up initially in the first sector, so definitely had the pole position time in him. Of course, Bosniakov only had to find 0.178 to gain on Kolot's pole position there. Big little wiggle from Jordan Daly as he rounds through the last turn, trying to straight line the Mercedes as much as he can to the line. Currently down in P16. Jordan Daly through the line. Big improvement there up into P6 with a 154.3, I believe I saw just at the bottom there. And Rafael Malho now with the opposite lock as well through the last turn. A little bit of traffic ahead, although not close enough, I don't think, to affect him. And these two will be your last two cars essentially to cross the line for qualifying. Rafael Malho, no improvement on position, although a slight improvement on lap time. So Pozniakov finds himself sandwiched between two Audis.
Sure does. And again, you have to ask your question for Andrei Pozniakov. Is that just the qualifying setup that was that unstable? Will they add a little bit of wing for the race? I don't know, but that was certainly hair raising. Quick indeed. Opposite side from the pole sitter, of course. But beyond that, two scary moments in that short session. I'd be putting a little bit more wing in it if it was me, partner.
Yeah, I'd definitely be putting a little bit more wing into it as well. Trying to keep that up for an hour isn't going to be easy, but look at the pace on Pozniakov's Porsche in the middle sector. Fastest of them all. Even took it away from Hugo Kolot, who had a very solid lap indeed. So all eyes to the Porsche in Sector 2. Ferrari's looking very quick in Sector 2 as well. Similar pace to the Porsche, 32.2 for Shipston and Kumpu. So keep your eyes on them just inside the top 10 as well. And Cassiaro, a bit of a dark horse last time out at the Nürburgring and Hungaroring, finds himself in P10. So keep your eye on him. He's always a guy that kind of makes up positions, and you don't quite know how he's done it, but he's managed it.
Rest of your qualifiers scrolling across the screen. Well, we talked about the championship situation here in the season finale, John, and I gotta say, it is close all over the points. Take us through the top 10 and championship points.
Yeah, certainly so. So Hugo Kolot, pole sitter today, right where he wants to be to try and beat Rafael Malho to that championship title, an all-out Audi battle. We then see a big gap down to Chris Downing for the Volpes Simsport with 136 points. Andrei Pozniakov, not a great start to the season, but has certainly clawed it back in the latter stages, 125 for him. Nico Kumpu, 115 with another Ferrari hot on his heels with 106 in the form of Tom Shipston. Joe Dorber, just 1 point separates them, but I don't think I've seen him here tonight. And Cassiaro, sorry, on 100 points. Dan Edvardson on 94, and Andy Borman just a single point behind, rounding out your top 10 pro. Moving on to page 2, of course, Pedro Marquez in the Lamborghini. Once again, not a great start to the season, but definitely has clawed some positions back through the latter half, with Matthew Kingston Lee just behind him on 84 points. Matt Stevens for RPMS. He has chosen the right livery tonight. So Daniel Crimson, if you're watching, that's 3 weeks in a row he's picked the right livery on 81. Pavel Gajda on 80. Pavlo Pavlychuk on 78. Jordan Daly, big jump down now, 59 points. Tudor Budu, your Lamborghini Super Trofeo silver champion, joint on 56 with Andre Dixon Chen. John Eraser on 52 and Rudy Filmalter on 49 rounds out your top 20. And on to what will be the final page. Richard Whittle on 46. Les Stevenson on 41. Koiret on 40. Hubert Hauser on 34. Charlie Spence on 32. Roskam on 29 and Carlos Calatayud on 23. Anybody else with a dash against their name has signed out. So Berner, Verstraeten, Bosch, Linderup, Rachinov, Allen, Tornberg, and Stevenson will not finish the championship. But still looking super competitive, Jesse. This man here, Hugo Kolot, of course, just needs to keep that yellow Audi just peering over the rear wing behind him for the next hour or so. And of course, Pozniakov is going to be the kind of curveball in this scenario, should we say. You know, if Pozniakov gets a great jump, he might hold up Kolot, which might allow Malho to attack. Or if Kolot gets a really good start, you could use Pozniakov as a little bit of a buffer. And of course, the Lamborghini there on the left-hand side of Marquez, you know how fast he is at a straight line. Could he also shoehorn himself between the championship title fight?
Yeah, a lot of drivers clearly thinking about the Mistral Straight the first time through, but the thing is, there's a whole first sector you got to get through before you get to that point. You've got to somehow survive, stay on the racetrack, and not lose time. That's what makes Sector 1 so very hectic around this racetrack. And of course, shout out to our lovely stewards that have been with us the entire championship. They'll be watching out for potential danger. We'll say this, the last 2 times we've had a red flag restart, 2 out of the last 3 times, I should say, it was right here at Paul Ricard. Hopefully, we're able to avoid that today with a healthy field for the series finale.
Hopefully not curse of the commentator about to happen there, Jesse. We know here at RCI TV, we love to put a curse on things sometimes, but as the sun, of course, sets just 9:05 in the evening, what should be night to most people in the winter, of course, very dark at 9:05, although for Ricard with a lovely sunset here in France. As drivers' engines begin to fire, everybody begins to pull away from their grid slot, and big bunch of Porsches at the back, which kind of suggests it's the trickier of the cars, shall we say. Big Roger BMWs just ahead of them as well, with a Pavlychuk Porsche thrown in for good measure. But yeah, you really can't call it tonight, Jesse. I think it's going to be a close one. Pozniakov hopefully dialed in some stability to the Barlas Esports Porsche, or he's going to find himself going backwards very, very fast in.
Certainly is. And of course, too, you got to consider if they don't end up in front of this field on the Mistral Straight, they'll be most likely in the draft. And if they have low downforce, that's only going to exacerbate the problems of not having enough downforce to turn the car. It's going to accentuate the opposite lock sort of motion of the car as well. And by the way, don't forget about that Lamborghini as well. They were by far, as far as all the cars we clocked anyway, the quickest in a straight line. How much damage could they do from the second row of the grid? John, before we go to green, we talked about it briefly. You mentioned it, but it begs repeating. Track limits always an issue here today. With so many cars going so quickly, such a tight points race, I have a feeling we're going to see the dreaded drive-through for track limits more than a few times tonight.
Yeah, it's going to be a tricky one for sure, Jesse. Like you say, track limits, always the tricky one. And, you know, with such wide open extra tarmac areas, it's very, very tricky to, you know, trying to push on and not pick up any of those limits. And of course, if you do pick up too many, it will be a trip down pit lane on top of the already additional, of course, mandatory pit stop that we require drivers to make. Standardized race format, of course, with a 1-hour sprint race. For the pit stop to qualify the rule set, you'll need to take a minimum of 1 litre of fuel during the 57-minute pit window, leaving tyres, of course, completely up to the drivers. And below track temperatures today, I think we're not going to see any tyres. It's just going to be that 1 litre of fuel and on their way once again.
I'd say that's a very safe bet indeed, as nobody will be willing to risk it, take all that extra time on pit lane on a gamble tonight. But then again, I have been wrong on those occasions before. Well, I have been doing the maths, as you might expect, and I don't think, based on the drop round and how many rounds Hugo Kolot has won, I don't believe it possible for him to lose the championship tonight, even if he didn't finish this race. Of course, if he didn't finish this race, this would become his drop round, and his worst finish would be second place. Just absolutely unflappable, unbeatable Hugo has been this season. Could this be a victory lap for him tonight?
Yeah, that's it. He's been super cool, calm, and collected. He's just got his head down, focused on the job at hand, and just kind of picked up win after win. And of course, the second place, like you say, being the lowest one, that will, of course, be his drop round for the season. Now, as cars begin to grid up 2 by 2, as they always do, of course, on the rolling starts here in ACT. First turn being a left-hander, though, of course, the outside will then become the inside for the next turn, the right-hander, as they charge down to turn 3. Beautiful scenes here tonight. The sun just setting behind the hills. Lots of extra tarmac, as me and Jesse said there, blue and red striping. Be very, very careful of the white lines. Don't put 4 wheels over them. You may find yourself with an extra trip down pit lane. Drivers sorting themselves out, trying to generate the last of the tyre temperature that they can as we roll towards the line, getting ready for the green flag. Of course, both cars on the front row are naturally aspirated, and the green flag drops, and we've got Pozniakov to the left-hand side of your picture. Kolok gets a great start, just edges ahead of Pozniakov, pulls over to try and chop the nose off and make it very hard for the Porsche driver to come through, and Malho wants to try and find a little bit of space around the outside of Pozniakov into turn 2. Cannot work, and a big bunch of cars at the back, mainly BMWs and Porsches. But I think everybody, don't want to curse it, Jesse, but everyone looks to be through safely as they now come down to the next sector of pinch points, and that's it. We've cursed it. Everybody off on driver's left. Can't quite make out who's involved there, but certainly a few drivers from the midfield, and more squeezing going on as we head to the Mistral Straight. Everybody trying to get as much track position as possible, and I think we've all thinned out now. Pozniakov going to have to try and break the tail of that Audi, although we know the Porsche's fast in a straight line, but we're not sure if it's Audi R8 LMS2 Evo fast, Jesse.
Well, we'll have to see who is winning the horsepower war here tonight. The stewards will have some sorting out in the hotel, and the hotel being the corner name. So all the cars scattered there, but very little damage done, admittedly, as everyone is able to continue. Nobody turned completely backwards, and here it is, the low downforce almost taking people off of the racetrack at the end of the Mistral Straight, but they're somehow able to keep it just inside the legal bounds.
Yeah, not too sure how they managed to do it, but they have managed to kind of navigate a lap safely. Like you say, Jesse, nobody really turned around compared to, what could happen. We've seen some horrific starts at Paul Ricard, and, with the low wing on this Porsche, I'm wondering if they're going to be able to keep the pace going. But everybody makes it round safely. A first opening lap as we now see a replay. Chris Downing at the bottom of your shot there, RPMS. Nico Kumpu charges up the inside. Big contact. Cassiaro takes avoiding action. Matt Stevens decides to straight line the corner as well. But that's a good thing about Paul Ricard. There is a lot of space to avoid any accidents. But Chris Downing down the lane. We've got Pavel Gajda and Cassiaro taking an early stop. And we did see that the early stop is kind of coming into favor a little bit more. Carlos Calatayud comes under pressure from another BMW there. I believe Kingston Lee looking to make up a position. Les Stevenson has gained a few positions on the BMW pack. John Racer just behind him now as well. We've got a bit of a yellow gaggle of BMWs starting to form behind Carlos. Andy Boardman up into 6th, still close enough to Pedro Marquez to maybe gain a slipstream off that Lamborghini. We know the Lamborghini was very fast, even in qualifying, without a giant hole being punched in the air ahead. And now he's got Andre Dixon Chen's R8 ahead of him. Could that be a move going into the fast right-hand sweeper? Rafael Malho sizing up Pozniakov's rear end once again, but Pozniakov with just enough legs in that Porsche, I think, to make it viable, as we see Malho just extending to 2.73 in a slight slipstream, and Marquez definitely gained on Dixon Chen there, and I think he didn't bring Andy Boardman with him. Andy Boardman still a little way back yet as well, as the BMW pack kind of maybe work together to try and fend off Les Stevenson, but Les to the inside, and Hubert Hauser, great to see Les making moves. He did struggle last week at the Nürburgring and couldn't quite figure out why, but he certainly found his mojo here, Jesse.
Certainly looking like the car to be able to turn under people. I think that even caught Hauser off guard a little bit whenever Les Stevenson was able just to turn down to the inside and actually make it stick. I thought for a second Stevenson was going to push out. Didn't do that at all. Stuck to the apex. But again, another move, maybe catching Hauser by surprise. Trying to go the long way, though. That rarely ever works out. But they're going to end up side by side. It's going to be a drag race down into turn number 1.
Yeah, drag race to turn 1. Porsche, of course, with the superior exit out of the last turn. The
Look at
BMW with
this!
the turbos. You know, Les Stevens is streaking ahead already into turn 1. He's kind of cleared Hauser. He could have almost chopped his nose off and gone fully defensive. Richard Whittle nearly running up the back of Hubert Hauser, and John Aracer just behind him as well. But Les up into P15. Great move there from the last turn, as we see a brief continuation of what happened at kind of the pinch point. Tom Shipston getting elbowed off by Chris Downing. Cassiaro coming back at Matt Stevens there as well. So, yeah, cars everywhere in that kind of incident, Jesse.
Cars everywhere, but not a single spin occurred. We saw one of the cars go completely sideways. They locked it down. It didn't fully go around. No car actually spun. A lot of contact there, and it's going to be interesting to see what the stewards have to say about that. But now, Team STR's Rafael Malo making a look on Pozniakov for the second place position. Down to the inside, thinks about it. That's going to force Pozniakov off. That'll certainly be a track limits warning for the driver of the 86 car. Going wide here again, Rafael Malo looking down to the inside. He's got it. He's got the inside, but unfortunately the track's going to go back in Pozniakov's way. They get very close together here as they round into the third sector of the racetrack, and it's a successful defense for the moment for Pozniakov. Malo's going to have to try that again, but just needs a little bit more overlap to make that work.
Yeah, I have no idea how Pozniakov managed to hold that one off around the long way of the fast sweeping right-hander, but somehow he managed to just to make it work. We're all saying in the chat behind the scenes, what is going on with this Porsche? You know, we typically say Porsche's, you know, a slouch in a straight line. It's very hard to get top end out of it. Had a brief kind of BOP balance with the aero change in the last patch as Hubert Hauser takes a trip round the wrong way in the last turn. Let's see what happened here from the helicam. I believe Richard Whittle, I want to say, possibly involved in that. On that one, parks it nicely kind of in the middle, bright yellow BMW there, and the BMW that caused it all managed to wait up as well to the right-hand side of the picture. So Stewart's probably going to be a little bit favourable for that. Both drivers, of course, losing out. You will, of course, gain a heftier penalty if you choose to take the position and kind of run away with it. But yeah, definitely slowing up is going to be in your favour in the bigger picture. And now we see Pozniakov's rear wing once again on board with the Team Barlas Esports. He's managed to pull enough of a gap, I think, Jesse, just to keep Malho out of that slipstream. And now Malho's going to come under fire from Andre Dixon-Chen in the other Audi R8. Just look at the slipstream difference between them. It's such a big advantage you get. And now Marquez looking to try and make a run as well, but I think Marquez is going to be very sensible. He knows the Lamborghini is quite quick in a straight line, so he's probably going to give it another lap and then make the same move that Dixon Chen just made on Malho.
What a move by Andre Dixon-Chen in the 64 to get up to P3. Rafael Malo, I was quite curious why Rafael did not come down to the inside. You're allowed to sort of cover off your line. You can't be weaving about making multiple moves, but he would have been within his right to cover off the inside, just didn't. I wonder if that's a mature racing driver saying easy come, easy go. We'll try to make that up at some other point, or maybe just realizing, they're a little bit quicker right now, and I don't want to get in any trouble with my car because I know I've got a top 5 race car.
Yeah, it could certainly be that. You know, it could be a very smart move that Malho's playing, knowing that, you know, Andre Dixon-Chen might just have the better straight line. He might let him go, then just sit in the tow and just tow himself around lap after lap, and then choose when to pit and try and make as much time up as he can. Of course, battling with your opponent isn't great, especially in a 1 hour sprint race. You lose too much time, you're never ever going to get that back in the latter half. And now Jordan Daly with the massive run out of turn 2 on Andy Boardman, forcing him to go to the outside for the next sequence of turns. Of course, outside will become the inside for Boardman if he can make it stick, but he can't. And now Tom Shipston looks like he's going to have a piece of this action. We know how fast the Ground Zero Racing Ferrari was down the Mistral in qualifying, and now he's going to have Andy Boardman to turn him along as well.
Some of my favorite racing I have ever got to commentate and ever got to see. are between some of these drivers we're watching fight right here. Jordan Daly, Andy Boardman, and John Arazer. There's been some words between some of those drivers in the past, but man, they put on an excellent show, and you just saw it there again. Daly thought he might have had him stuck, but no. Boardman able to get back out in front, but of course, Daly was able to do the double undercut and get back to his inside. Just being able just to get that position done and dusted. Meanwhile, back up right in front of that battle, this battle continues. Rafael Malo losing positions now, but trying to stay on the back of Dixon Chin, who, by the way, has caught Pozniakov again. Remember, there was a pretty sizable gap there about a lap and a half ago. It's absolutely a race now, as everybody in this pack, 4 drivers fighting for P2.
Yeah, it could have just been the smart move, like we just said, by Malho to allow Dixon Chen through with the faster car, pull themselves up to the back of Pozniakov, and maybe force Pozniakov into a little bit of a mistake that just allows him to get up the inside or the outside, as Malho now actually pulls into the pits, completely scrap what I just said. I thought he was going to allow Dixon Chen to have a pop at Pozniakov and see what he could have done on getting past, but meanwhile, of course, Malho losing time, losing track position, and when Hugo Kolot currently has the fastest lap of the race with a 1:54.777, that is something you don't want to be losing for your championship race.
Well. Interesting days here. We have been informed behind the scenes that the Porsche's BOP here is not particularly what you would expect with a Porsche. We have seen that with some of the other tracks, notably in the Americas as well. Porsche has a favorable BOP even in a straight line, and here is one of those cases at Paul Ricard as well. And it's certainly showing you can use a low wing setup, and you could I mean, the Porsche is just a perfect car at that point, really, if you were honest with ourselves. It can turn better, it can brake better, and now you're telling me it's good in a straight line? Why wouldn't you pick the Porsche?
Yeah, it's definitely one of those cars to pick if you can keep it on the straight and narrows. We saw Pozniakov with a few issues in qualifying. Hopefully the fuel tank can maybe balance that out over the front axle as Tom Shipston makes up a place on Jordan Daly. No sweat for the Ferrari as we now see a Porsche side by side. Tudor Budu on the outside, Koret on the inside, and we see the first of our drive-throughs. Hubert Hauser with a little bit of a connection issue there, I think, and Nico Kumpu picks up a drive-through, and Hauser looking to almost split the Porsches down into the double apex right-hander, but finds his way all the way around the outside of Koiret. Kind of spooked him enough on the entry just to kind of throw him off a little bit, and Chris Downing picking up a 5-second penalty as well, Jesse. I think the stewards have woken up after that the lap 1 incident.
Certainly has a couple of penalties coming through early on. John, do interrupt me if you need to. First of all, a warning for a lap 1 turn 14 incident with car 256, an overtake with contact on car 30. So a drive through as well for car 256, braking too late, causing significant contact with car 23. Then hits the 77 in a domino effect. That was a drive-through for the 256 and a warning for lap 1. 5-second penalty for car 23, overshooting the corner, pushing the 60 off track. Position not returned on lap 1, turn 5. And a 5-second penalty for the 23 again. Same lap, different corner, turn 9 this time. Avoidable contact by car 23, causing the 924 to lose 2 positions.
That's certainly the drive-through for Kumpu there for the kind of lap 1 incident on a chain reaction. So not track limits as I thought it was. It did kind of pop up at about the right time for it. So yeah, not good for Nico Kumpu. Of course, 2 trips down pit lane. And looking over to the YouTube chat, Jesse, we've got a couple of fans in the chat tonight. We've got a Povlachok fan, we've got a Gadgeta fan, we've got a Pedro Marquez fan. So definitely great to see support from kind of every end of the field. It's not just the one driver. As Roscam with big rear end damage there. Race replay, Jesse. Let's see what happened. Through the fast right hander, hit the weird bump on the outside, and it just spun him to the to driver's right. Very strange indeed. Not seen that too much before, especially from the from the M4. The M4 is normally quite a stable car over the curbs, we were saying, in qualifying, as Richard Whittle has picked up 15 seconds, and Downing with another 5 as we jump on board. Andre Dixon Chen looks very good on the brakes compared to the Porsche, although slightly misses the apex, which detriments his run out of the second turn down to the third turn. See the drive of the Porsche just pulling away on the Audi R8 there. So let's see, can he keep it close enough for the Mistral straight? Of course, prime passing point normally on a Porsche, like we say, it's normally a bit of a slouch in a straight line, but Pozniakov certainly found a setup tweak that makes it work and come alive in a straight line now.
I will tell you, it's a scary, brave new world, almost Jurassic Park-like whenever you see a Porsche pulling away from you in a straight line. It's just so strange. It's so different. It's so antiquated to what you're normally used to, and it's just absolutely frightening to see. You know what else is frightening to see? Penalties out on the racetrack. 15-second penalty for the 957 for a takeout with position return, and on lap 3, turn 14, and a racing incident between the 64 and the 38. That's our first racing incident of the day. It took us 4 laps to get one.
Yeah, 4 laps for a racing incident. And speaking of which, getting very dicey between Andy Boardman and Matt Stevens. Matt Stevens, of course, dispatching of Jordan Daly into turn 1 just as we began the read through of the stewards reports. So a little bit of Merc on Merc action. I said earlier that Daly, the only Merc, of course, forgetting the RPMS boys normally tend to take this car as well. But Boardman putting up a good defense on the grunty Merc as it obviously powers down the straight just behind it. But definitely a bit quicker in the qualifying that we were watching than the Audi R8. And of course, round through the last turn towards the start finish line, just a quick message from some of our partners, of course, AK Esports, leading Italian company in esports management and organization across the world. If you believe they can help you at all, like they can with us on our server solutions here at RCI, we'll check them out in the description. Driver61.com, of course, you can get 25% off your driver coaching by using our discount code with a link in the description below as well. And Fanatec, of course, needs no introduction. We do have an affiliate link here at RCI with them. So if you are looking to pick up any hardware over the next year or so, please do use our link, and it does help us with some of the running costs here at RCI. And finally, 2 new partners, of course, for this year, 2023, making moves at RCI, digitalmotorsports.com, offering a number of products and services, mainly for the Irish market, although they are branching out over the world. Founded in 2018 by 2 enthusiastic motorsport fans, they had a vision to create Ireland's leading digital motorsport environment and resource. And if you believe they can help you at all, check out their link in the below as well. And finally, Go Setups, formed to be a premium setup store for ACC with some big names behind their setups, trying to cater for all markets. So trying to find a little bit of pace, they might be able to help you with that one. And every time I say Go Setups, Jesse, Jaguar pack, of course.
You absolutely love that. And oh, I know what I love, some good racing. Matt Stevens trying to just about keep Andy Boardman out of the door. He got his foot in there, did Andy Boardman. Stevens was able to slam it shut, though. Jordan Daly, basically just a passenger at this point, can't really do anything about this. He's got to let them get side by side and then figure out how he's going to make the move. Huge lunge by Boardman, though, and it's very slow exiting the corner like that. Had to check up a little bit. Matt Stevens gets away.
Yeah, the grunty Merc of Matt Stevens definitely pulling away down the main straight, at least as we come
The
down to
grunty
turn 1.
Merc.
That's it. It's very grunty. It's got a lot of grunt behind it, quite powerful. You know, gets it done out of the corners.
It sounds like a British children's television program from the 90s. Is what it sounds like.
A bit like the Gruffalo book series that we have in the UK.
See, John, that's what I like about you. You just get me.
Exactly. We're on the same wavelength here, Jesse Lee. All good. Not casting with you in a little while, but it's it's great to have you back for an evening, shall we say. As Andrei Pozniakov looking back from his rear wing of the team Ballas Esports Porsche, of course, Dixon Chen, although very fast on a few of the other cars, not finding it as easy to dispatch a Pozniakov, and here he comes in the tow, just towing up to the back of that Porsche like it's nothing. Pozniakov goes defensive. Andre Dixon Chen to the outside, just about gets a car length ahead, come the fast right-hander, and Pozniakov, I think he knows when he's been beaten, slots back in behind just to try and get a good run. And Daly, of course, now sizing up Andy Boardman down the straight, and nothing to be had there. Boardman with a bit of a defense going, very careful of the bollards, nearly picking up a track limits, but very surprised at how quick that R8 was in a straight line, Jesse.
I think everybody was surprised. Pozniakov was the first one to be surprised by that. With all here trying to make a maneuver on Voodoo, and I think he just gets let go on that particular occasion. I want to go back to Pozniakov for a second. I want to mention something. Yes, that was a very late move by the ballless Porsche, but that's not what I'm concerned about. What I'm concerned about is he very nearly hit a ditch on the side of the racetrack. We saw somebody hit the curb on the left side, and it unsettled the car. You hit the one on the right where the chicane is, the F1 chicane is, it'll throw you into the air and you'll end up backwards as well. You can't be hitting the left or right side of the racetrack. Pozniakov got very close.
Yeah, as flat as kind of Paul Ricard looks, it does have some very nasty bumps in the kind of joining sections. Like you say, Jesse, on the kind of F1 chicane entry and exit, there is a very nasty mound in the road that if you do hit it wrong, you will find yourself fired off to either driver's left or driver's right. As Daly looks very strong through turn 3 to 4. That's the only problem with Paul Ricard. It's a very switchback nature circuit, so one corner goes wrong, it tends to put you just offline for the next one as well. And Boardman is definitely within a slipstreaming kind of window on the back of the RPMS Simsport car. Not sure if we're going to see the kind of speed that Dixon Chen certainly had on Pozniakov. Time will tell, as Tom Shipston now tows himself forward with the Lamborghini. We know the Lamborghini's fast in general, and if Pozniakov's not careful, he's going to be swamped by two cars. Nearly 3 wide coming up to this point, Jesse. This is a very dangerous game to play, and Tom Shipston backs out very nicely. Pozniakov to the inside, Marquez around the outside, and we now see Daly up the inside of Boardman, and they touch.
A little bit of contact there. That's going to send Andy Boardman off a little bit. That might have been a track limits warning as well. But Pedro Marquez, I thought they were going to be the loser in that scenario. I thought they were going to end up at the caboose of the train. Somehow they come out smelling like roses. They get the position instead, and now they are in 4th place. Again, it's where they started. Oh, it's a huge lunge down the inside. Pedro Marquez in 3rd, doesn't want to give that position back up. Pozniakov thought about having a look, got almost all the way in there. Last second decided, you know what? I don't want to be involved in an accident today.
Yeah, you can't really blame him, can you? Knowing how unstable the Porsche was in qualifying, Pozniakov maybe wanting to play it a little bit safer, of course. No real kind of championship to fight for Pozniakov, but the start of the Euromasters wasn't ideal for him, so a little bit out of sequence on the likes of Hugo Colot and Rafael Malho, but Malho just looking down the order, currently down in P17, of course. First driver on the road that has made his pit stop, so he's going to be the reference point for where everyone else comes out around him. And Tom Shipston definitely close to the back of Pozniakov now, and I think the tow down the Mistral Straight is going to be the one that gets him through. Of course, the Ferrari hitting nearly 280 in qualifying along nearly with the Lamborghini as well, so a good kind of partnerish, should we say. Of course, if Shipston can get past Pozniakov, himself to the back of Marquez, they might be able to work together to try and catch Andre Dixon Chen's 64 Audi as Pedro Marquez tries to break the tow. Pozniakov comes over to driver's left, Shipston to the inside, and I think this move is going to be signed, sealed, and delivered before the corner even begins. Pozniakov backing out very sensibly indeed. Of course, the Porsche super unstable around the outside, not where you want to be, although Shipston runs a little bit wide, nearly allows Pozniakov the run up to the double right-hander, but no move to be had. And Pozniakov's teammate now, Pavlychuk, under pressure, from Carlos Calate as he goes the wrong side of the bollards, possibly a track cut there, and Pavel Gachta looks like he's facing the wrong way, Jesse, and he certainly was.
Oh no, Pavel backwards in the 924 BMW. That is not what they wanted to see, and spinning it again, trying to get the car back underway. They finally get it pointed in the right direction, but assume that was contact that led to that. I didn't see exactly what started that all.
Yeah, being told told in our ear by Stewie that there was no contact logged on the tool. Unfortunately, Pavel just lost it on the brake, so maybe a little bit too much curb on the entry as we now see Pedro Marquez with a trip down pit road, and along comes Pavlychuk with him as well, possibly trying to fight their way into a little bit, a cleaner air section, should we say, without the likes of Shipston pressurizing down on them to try and get them out of the way. Andy Boardman still very close to Jordan Daly. Daly's through, but isn't ahead enough yet to defend from the slipstream down the Mistral Straight as Boardman gets very, very close in the number 70 Greased Weasel racing car. Normally races under number 69, but not tonight. The 70 is the choice, and Matt Stevens just up the road, but not by a lot. Stevens, of course, got through a couple of laps ago now, Jesse, but he's not been able to kind of use that clean air to run away.
Certainly can't, and that's sort of the problem here is no matter how good you are in one sector, this track is pretty balanced, like an infinity gauntlet a little bit, really. If you're really good in sectors 1 and 3, you're probably going to be a little bit slower in sector 2, the long straight, and vice versa. So it all sort of balances itself out. You know what's balancing this out? Each other. They're just about doing everything except coming to blows. Daly with a mega defense there coming off the Mistral Straight and just about keeps Boardman in check. I think the message has been delivered, and Andy Boardman none too pleased.
Yeah, certainly so. And Pavlychuk now looking to the back of Cassiaro. Bit of the weird ACC netcode that kind of like warps cars back and forth at high speed. Very disorientating sometimes as a driver, let alone when you're spectating. Very, very strange indeed. Now Pavlychuk to the inside. Going to have the favoured line. I think Cassiaro lifted maybe slightly to let the fellow Porsche through, but maybe these two can work together, of course. They have both made their pit stops, and if Cassiaro can keep Pavlychuk in check, maybe he might learn a thing or two, of course, from the Barless Esports driver on lines, braking points, where Pavlychuk is obviously stronger than him, where he has, room to improve as a driver, as Boardman still sizing up the back of Daly. Still nothing to be had down into turn 1, and Boardman looks close enough, but he just can't find that extra 0.1, 0.2 to find his way past Daly, but certainly looking a bit closer than last time we came to the Mistral Straight, Jesse. So I'm wondering if this is the move for Boardman towards the end. Daly carries a lot more speed through the right-hander than Boardman does. Boardman kind of shallows it up a bit, but gets a much tighter line through the next sequence of turn onto the Minstrel Straight. And here he goes in the slipstream, but I think the Mercedes has just about got enough on that Audi. I'm not sure if the Audis are running particularly high wing levels tonight, but they are really struggling in a straight line.
Well, here comes Andy Boardman. He's got a little bit of a slipstream, and he's going to get there just by the end, but will it be enough to get position? Daly doesn't defend. Andy Boardman looks up the inside. Will Daly give him the room? Just barely. And was that a tap, or was that a slide all by himself? Boardman reins it back in. He'll lose about a second or so. Let's go to the race replay. Was this contact? Was this just aero wash? We're about to find out as they go. Ooh, that's so close, but I don't believe they actually made contact there. That's the aero wash of the car just absolutely unsettled him, but what a save by Andy Boardman.
Yeah, certainly a great save from Boardman. Kudos to him, although those Pirellis will be now screaming out in pain.
Yeah, they're not going to be happy.
Large high-speed slide. Definitely not happy indeed. We know what happens to these tires when they do, get worked too hard and overheat. They just kind of fall off a cliff. But Jesse, interesting point. Just look to the top right-hand side of your screen as Cassiaro and Pavlychuk both wrestle the Porsches. Cassiaro sideways into the double right-hander, finds his way nearly up the inside. Possible contact between the two Porsches. Not sure what happened there. Be good to see a race replay, possibly from the splitter cam of Cassiaro. See how close he really did get. And Cassiaro letting him back through on the next turn. So I think he's kind of admitted fault there and said, you know what, Pavlychuk, my bad, on you go. Let's have another crack at this, and we'll see if we can get it done a little bit cleaner next time. And Andy Boardman now down the pit lane. Not sure if he's already served his pit stop, and out he comes as we now see a helicam there. It seems, yeah, just Pavlychuk came back down. Wasn't expecting Cassiaro's nose to be on the inside, and wham bam, thank you, ma'am. There's a sideways Porsche moment.
Now, I wonder what the stewards will say about that. They'll obviously have a look at that, but because of the nature of the two cars just racing each other, they didn't impede anybody else's progress. And the position was given back. Might they be lenient with that and just give a warning for the contact, even though it was somewhat of a spin? It all depends on how they view that, but I suspect they might just get away with that, with at very worst a warning. Dixon Chin, by the way, stormed up inside the top 5 all the way up to P2, but he is losing time to Hugo Colot as John Razor looks for, actually that's Withall actually making a move on a Razor. The 957 has a 15-second penalty, of course, but still no fight from John Razor there. Just sort of let him have it with that big penalty.
Yeah, Racer obviously very heads-up driving, kind of knows, of course, Whittle's got to serve the extra 15 seconds in his pit box. So by the time Racer, sorry, has served his stop, he's going to be way on his way down the road before Whittle is even released. And speaking of pit stops, 2 Mercedes in now. Matt Stevens ahead in the RPMS liveried car, and Jordan Daly for Just Gamers in behind him as well. So they will probably come out together and resume their fight. While we have a lull, I would say. Time to run down the calendar this week at RCI. Of course, Tuesday with our empty slot due to the iRacing Championship finished. And as soon as I start this, Emilian Koirat now looking to make a move on Malho. Not what I would expect. Of course, Koirat was at the back of the grid at the beginning and now finds himself tucked up behind the Audi R8 of Malho. So very interesting there. Malho, of course, not wanting to lose any more positions than he already has, and we now see Cassiaro with another stab at Povlachok. Povlachok to the inside, Cassiaro to the outside. If he can make the outside of turn 1 work, it's going to become the inside of 2, and he's just about ahead enough, but I can't help but feel he just doesn't trust that Povlachok Porsche to not come back down on him again, and almost felt like he kind of backed out of the turn 2 move, but definitely had his nose ahead, Jesse.
Well, they got very close. They didn't come to blows this time, and they will be trying to mind themselves a little bit better. Takes a little cheeky look down the inside, does Cassiero, but doesn't think anything else of it. Pulls back, and Polachuk gets back out in front. But my goodness, they may not be inside the top 10. This may not be for a massive points haul, but you couldn't tell it. This, for them, might as well be the entire championship. Flash of the lights from the 54 to the 15, letting them know, I'm quicker than you. I would like to go through. You're making this incredibly difficult.
Yeah, Cassiaro now to the outside for the fast right-hander. Povlachok on the inside, the more favored side of the turn, and a big slide from Povlachok. Cassiaro takes avoiding action to driver's left, just about manages to keep it the right side of the cones, and somehow Povlachok holds on to that position, Jesse.
I can't believe what I just saw. Polachuk just absolutely Tokyo drifted that Porsche around the corner. Not only did he save it, he didn't lose the position.
Absolutely crazy scenes. And of course, when you have no real championship on the line, of course, you can have these really fun fights, you know, where you just make ridiculous moves on each other, and somehow it all works out in the end as Jordan Daly now comes to the back of Chris Downey. Of course, Chris with a 10-second penalty just lets Daly take the inside, does pinch him to the inside of the curb, the outside then of course becomes the inside, and the Volpa Simsport car just about holds on, but Daly now with a great exit out of turn 2 down towards turn 3. Daly of course on the inside in the Mercedes. If Chris can make it work around the outside, of course it will become the inside. They rub, and Downing takes avoiding action, straight lining what is essentially turn 4. Flash of the headlights from Daly, not too happy about that one, because it's now left him exposed to Andy Boardman as they come onto the straight.
Defensive line there trying to keep Boardman behind him. He can't allow Boardman to get around him, and he was very upset about the contact with Downing. Has something else happened in this battle? Oh, there has been. It's been another spin. They both pirouette off of the final turn. Will any of them settle down or not? I don't think they will, as they will continue their battle. This battle continuing as well. Daly, defensive line to the inside. Boardman trying to go around the outside of the seat. I don't think he's going to have the line. He doesn't even cut back as Daly survives for another corner. Now, all about making up the time they lost back to Downing, who, by the way, has that 10-second penalty as well. My goodness, what a race this has been. And by the way, folks in chat have pointed out Of course, that Daly had jumped Stevens in the 77 Mercedes in the pit lane. We suspect that the 77 did, in fact, take tires.
Yeah, a bit of a strange one. We were saying earlier, Jesse. Of course, the race being an hour, track temperature being relatively low, doesn't really make too much sense to take tires. But I mean, if you think the time you lose in the pit, you can make up later on, then so be it. Maybe Stevens is praying that, of course, Daly is going to wear the front left, the front left of that Mercedes out in the kind of fast sweepers as Boardman gets very close to the back of Daly. Splitter now through turn one. Daly kind of parked it straight on the apex. No room around either side for Boardman, but everybody's just taking lumps out of each other tonight, Jesse.
It's the final race of the season. You got to let them know where you stand, John. And I think that's exactly what you're seeing. It's an action racetrack. I know a lot of drivers, it's not their favorite track to have to race on. I know when I race here, whenever leagues come here, I'm not the biggest fan of this racetrack, but the second I get out there, I start having fun. And I'm going to tell you something. I have never had a boring race in this broadcast booth here at Paul Ricard. It is an action track, and you're seeing it again tonight.
Yeah, I think it's just one of those kind of tracks that, favors the cat and mouse nature of some of these cars. Some of the cars are superb through the turns, but a bit of a slouch down the straight. And then on the flip side, some of the cars are great down the straight, but a bit of a slouch in the turn. So it kind of balances itself out, keeps everybody kind of within check of each other, of course, with BOP. We now see Dixon, Chen, and Shipston both down the pit lane as they will fall down the order to serve their mandatory pit stop. And seems like everybody's kind of pitting not where I'd expect them. We've seen a lot of pit stops very late in the window this season, with 1 to 2 minutes to go. And, with still just under 25 minutes on the clock remaining and just over 23 minutes of a pit window, the majority of the field has done their stops.
Well, yeah, you couldn't be more right about that as well. Like, it's not uniform. Usually we see a general consensus as well of when they're going to pit. There's absolutely been none of that. It's a couple of cars at a time. Again, this time it's the same thing. Dixon Chin into the pit lane, Tom Shipston into the pit lane, and so is John Arazer. But everybody else continued on, and you've seen that. It's just been a smattering of pit stops throughout the entire pit window. That is incredibly unusual, like you said.
Silver champion from the Super Trofeo Series. Tudor Budu coming under pressure now from Marquez in the Lamborghini. We know that Lambo was ridiculous in a straight line, so with a slipstream of a Porsche, I'm sure he's going to make light work of Budu as they round on to the Mistral Straight. And was about to go through this week's calendar at RCI before it all kind of kicked off. We got to Wednesday. This week takes our team championship to Imola. Last time out at Bathurst, Red Kings Motorsport 27 took GT3 Pro. Red Kings Motorsport 455 also took GT3 Silver. And JS Motorsport now lead Team Beaumont from Race Ventura for Pro. While Red Kings Motorsport lead Whittles, Whizzers and Base of Tex in Silver. Thursday, as we see a move, Marquez there through on Budu. Thursday is now another empty slot since the British GT Championship finished just a couple of weeks ago. Daly with a big slide, Jesse, loses 2 positions there from Downing, I believe. Downing and, fighting for Downing's position. P11,
dear.
a big mistake there. And obviously those Pirellis not going to be in the greatest conditions. So maybe Matt Stevens with those fresh Pirellis could make them work now on Daly. But Thursday, of course, with an empty slot. Friday this week continues our sprint challenge for season 10 as they head to Mount Panorama, with round 2 honours going to Jaroslav Roth from Christoph Verstreppen and Dan Edverson. Roth leads Lawrence from Verstreppen in overall standings. And Jesse, this week, of course, is the big one once again. Blink, and it's come round way too fast. Of course, the RCI 6-hour challenge with the free split on Saturday, and of course the esports split on Sunday. Can of course catch here at RCI TV, both on YouTube and Twitch TV. Of course, we'll give the big boys in the esports the kind of stage on the Sunday. Of course, Saturday will be battled out in private behind closed doors. Of course, you can join our Discord if you're curious to find out how that is going for a lot of those people. But of course, the esports split, 49 teams separated by less than 0.453 seconds in pre-qualifying. with limited tire sets, a custom BOP, and a forecasted five-figure €11,000 prize pool. The series, of course, aims to showcase the absolute best of what sim racing has to offer on ACC. Williams Esports Team Razor took the opening round victory from Team 1 FF and a hard-charging Veloce Ferrari on an amazing comeback drive from P48 turn 1 to P3 by the time the checkered flag dropped, earning themselves the AK Esports Team of the Race Award and, of course, bagging themselves a bonus €100 to their overall prize pool as well. And speaking of bagging, here comes Andy Boardman to the inside of Chris Downing, and this might shoehorn open the door for Daly, who's found his way up, and side by side, Just Gamers and
Downing didn't give him room.
Just no room there. Downing did shut the door, but very fairly, I would say. No contact really made as Downing kind of opens the door again. The Just Gamers driver looks to the inside to see if he can make it stick, but just not close enough in the Mercedes.
Well, he's an angry gamer right about now, I can tell you that. Nobody likes getting the door shut on him like that, especially whenever it was so widely open, and this is exactly what happens as a consequence. You take a huge lunge like that, it didn't come to anything, but Daly absolutely registering his displeasure with Downing. A couple of contacts, a door slammed, and now Andy Boardman is gone up the road. See you later, Andy Boardman.
Andy Boardman's just kind of loving this while he looks in the mirror of the Audi R8, looks back to see the M4 and the AMG Evo fighting each other, all the meanwhile them getting smaller and smaller in the mirror. And Jesse, I just want to turn your attention to Cassiaro now with a drive-through. Of course, lap 16, turn 14, involving the 15 and the 54. We, of course, have a drive-through for the 54 for taking out the 15 position, not returned. And, of course, a couple of laps prior, lap 14, turn 12, once again involving Cassiaro and Popochok. No further action for the initial one. The 15 oversteers and starts spinning in front of the 54, who does not have enough time to avoid. So Stewart's thinking fairly of the double apex right-hander one that we said we weren't too sure where it was going to go. But the move into the last turn netted a drive-through for Cassiaro, unfortunately.
Yeah, and of course you can see Roscam, who's in the pit lane. They've got a drive-through as well, but that was for track limits. We talked a little bit about that during the opening lap of the race where we expected it to happen. I don't believe the 96 is the only car to get that, as Jordan Daly has absolutely flung the door open this time, side by side, and he's just going to let him go this time as Downing, as Daly finally able to get that move made. But as I was saying, I believe there's been multiple drive-throughs for track limits today. We, of course, have only caught the one, but certainly I feel like there was one earlier that was not the result of a steward's inquiry. Look at this, the best name in sim racing. I'm not biased at all. Matthew Kingston Lee for KL Racing. Inside the top 5 for the moment, still has a pit stop to give, of course, but they've caught Carlos Caladian.
Yeah, Carlos, of course, ahead as well with the pit stop still to take. So this fight might even be settled on the pit lane if one of them, slightly misses their jack, slightly too kind of early on the pit limiter, or maybe a little bit too late coming out with the ignition and the starter. So anything can happen here, of course, with this one, as Cassiaro now trundles down pit lane to serve his drive-through penalty, so that will slot him down a few more positions as well. Les Stevenson probably set to gain out of that one as Matthew Kingston Lee, here he comes on the back of Carlos, looks to the inside, pulls out and kind of hits that wall of air. 10 kilometers an hour of wind tonight. That's quite a high number for ACC. Typically most races are very neutral at kind of just a couple of kilometers, so maybe something that's catching a few of the drivers out as they head into the faster sections, of course, with lower aero, high wind against them. Could just be enough to upset the cars, and Carlos survives with another lap, still in 3rd position provisionally.
Well, the wind is at their back down the straight, and that is good news. You go a little bit quicker like that, of course, but the front straight, it's always in your face, so it is slowing you down a little bit more. A little bit of a headwind, all that does is help bunch you up just a little bit more. Look at Andy Boardman, the Grease Weasel Racing, going like a stabbed rat here tonight, as dispensed of Downing and Daly, now going for the 85 Porsche and looking up the inside. I think he's going to do it without a contest.
Yeah, I think Koiret kind of gave him that one. Of course, Koiret knows that Boardman might be a little bit quicker than him, as we flick to a race replay here. Andre Dixon Chen and RPMS SimSport Matt Stevens on the outside. through the double apex right-hander. Stevens just looks like he's struggling for grip. Meanwhile, Dixon Chen just drives through like it's, completely clean. Like two very different set of race cars there. And somehow Stevens back past Andre Dixon Chen by the time they get to the last corner. Not sure what happened with that one, but the Mercedes definitely on the tack. Of course, we know Matt Stevens took tyres. Andre Dixon Chen, probably like the majority of the field, choosing to not take any new Pirellis at all. And it's a very strange move, I thought, by Matt Stevens to take tyres tonight.
Yeah, it is an interesting call. We thought, we both agreed that we didn't expect anyone to do that, but it has occurred. At least one of the cars has taken tires. And by the way, what's happened to Dixon Chen? This is not anywhere we expected them to be running after the pit stop. They have the fastest lap of the race, but it's not doing them any particular good down in 15th place. The 64 car way off of where they probably would have thought they should have been.
I mean, if you look at the cars with outstanding pit stops, still seven cars there, and Pozniakov and Kolot being two of them. So Dixon Chen probably only set to gain a maximum of 5 positions, as Matt Stevens indicates to the right-hand side, says, you know what, Dixon Chen, this one's yours. Let's tow each other around and see what we can do between us. Of course, Dixon Chen with the fastest lap. Very smart driving from Stevens there. And if I was him, I'd probably be in the same boat, just letting the Audi go, using the slipstream to tow the Mercedes around, essentially, and see if he can catch, obviously, Downing ahead with a 10-second penalty. Dixon Chen already within 6 seconds of him. So these guys just kind of have to settle their differences almost, Jesse. Drive very smart, wait for the checker flag to drop in about 15 minutes time. And of course, Downing gets smacked with a 10-second penalty and loses not only 1, but maybe even 2 positions to Stevens if he can stick close enough.
I will tell you, speaking of Stevens, there's a debate going on from our pit road spies on if Stevens did take tires or not. Stevens did have a lot slower pit stop. Most pit stops were in the 42nd bracket. Stevens was up in the 50s. And we do also have an answer why Dixon Chen is way behind where they were running. They had a 1:06 pit stop. I don't care who you are. That is an eternity on pit road when the majority of the field were in and out at 40.
Yeah, so that's quite a big chunk of time to lose. 20 seconds, of course, over a sprint race is massive. If it was 20 seconds over the course of maybe 6 to 7 hours of, endurance racing, you could certainly claw that back. But within the small time frame after the pit stop, it's not looking likely, let's say, as Kingston Lee sizes up Carlos once again into the fast right-hander, but nothing to be had here, and both drivers very safe over the curbs, unlike Roscam earlier, where he got pinged off into the to driver's right, ended up slapping the rear of the M4 against the wall and kind of ending his race right there and then. But great driving from Carlos. It's it's good to see him up inside the top 3, even if it is just provisionally before the pit stop cycle through, but doing the typical strategy we've seen all season, where maybe just running it to the end of the pit window.
Yeah, it's what you're going to see, I think, from a lot of the front runners here. Kolot's not going to come in until he has to. He might give himself a lap or so, just as an extra insurance to make sure he gets into pit road and he doesn't have a spin or anything and violates the limit. But here comes one of the BMWs, collided into the pit lane. Further confusing me, of all things, the pit strategy has literally been all over the shop tonight. That releases Kingston Lee up into a provisional podium position. Pozniakov in second, and Kolot are up there on merit, so to speak. Again, those two at least, I definitely expect them to not be in for another 8, 9, 10 minutes maybe.
Yeah, definitely. So you could definitely run it another, like I say, 8, 9, 10 minutes and still have more than enough buffer to come in, drop the 1 litre in, drop the car after Jackson, on you go, as Tudor Budu finds his way into the pit lane, this time by as well. So Dixon Chen probably set to gain another position on him. Whittle still yet to pit with the 15 seconds looming over himself, so that's going to be another couple of spots gained from the kind of midfield, should we say. Kolot running away with 13.7 seconds to the good on Pozniakov. Pozniakov somehow keeping the Porsche on the straight and narrow, despite what we believed in qualifying. He's definitely done well at wrestling that. Maybe underdriving the car a bit just to keep it safe now. Of course, he's got Kingston Lee as a buffer between himself and Malho provisionally. So no real attack, no real defense needs to be mounted. He just needs to keep it very consistent, as Hugo Kolot in the race team comes across the line to take lap 25, commencing with just under 12 minutes to go. And another dominant performance, I want to say, Jesse. He's just got his head down, focused on a good start, really nailed it into turn 1 and 2, and just kind of ignored the mirror of all the mishaps behind and just driven cleanly away once again. It's been a perfect season, should we say, almost.
Yeah, I mean, their worst finish midway through the season, a P2, otherwise unbeatable wins across the board in 3 of the 4 races thus far. Looks like they're on their way to winning 4 out of 5, and I don't care who you are, that is utter domination, and you just got to tip your hat to the man. He's just been unbeatable, undrivable, and he's done it in qualifying, he's been doing it in the races, and that is impressive. Carlos Caladian continuing to try and make moves happen here on Downing in front of him. And he's going to want to get a move on as Dixon Chin is making inroads, trying to get back inside the top 10 at least. Carlos cannot wait around and get held up by Downing, but that is certainly what's happening right here. Final 10 minutes or so of the race. The light failing, the lights becoming absolutely necessary. The sun has dipped below the horizon and the mountains as well. Just adding a little extra here tonight. Sunsetting on the championship, sunsetting on the racetrack.
Yeah, of course, with sunset, of course, comes sunrise. And whether it's sunny or not in your world, if I told you next Monday champ will be a one-make series once again, as we see, Carlos Calatayud getting up the inside of Chris Downing. And this, of course, will bring Andre Dixon Chen with him as well, as Downing runs a little bit wide, compromises himself down the straight. I think the Audi R8 just about has enough legs, squeezes him to the right-hand side of the course. He's going to probably want to open up the corner a little bit later on, but for now, Dixon Chen, I think for distinct GG, has just about done it and uses the toe of Carlos to pull ahead. And yeah, as I was saying, if you you enjoy the Maserati GT4, then why not race it for every Monday for a good few weeks, as Tim Ireland announced the new series, the next Monday Championship, to begin, of course, on April 10th at Silverstone. And yeah, the Maserati MC GT4. I'm not too sure what Tim was thinking with this one. It's not going to be an easy championship by any means. Of course, those familiar with the car will know it has no traction control and no ABS. Very different to the GT3 and GT4 machinery in the game otherwise. And I've also been told there will be at least one wet race in the calendar, Jesse. So going to be like ice skating, let's say, for some of the drivers in that round.
Folks, here's what I got to say about the Maserati car, all right? It's an interesting car to drive. It's not great to drive in the wet. It is very fun in a one-make series. Nobody wants to be the only one in the Maserati without any electronic aids, but if you're in a field full of them, it is some of the most action-packed and intense racing you can ever do. You know, different sims like iRacing, everyone loves the Skip Barber car. Why? Because it slides around and it's quite fun to drive. You got to manhandle the car sometimes. The Maserati is basically a Skip Barber car, but in GT4 form. I cannot wait for that series. Sign up today, do your pre-queue, get involved in that series. I'm going to be watching one way or another. I am not stepping anywhere near one of those cars. I'd end up backwards immediately.
Yeah, I completely forget about the ABS, the lack of ABS, should we say. Slam the brake for the first corner and then realize, oh yeah, wheels can lock in this car, and go skating off in the opposite direction to where the track goes. As Carlos tries to mount an attack on Dixon Chen, but nothing to be had. The Audi R8 with just about enough straight line poke on the BMW to keep itself ahead. And Dixon Chen really on a hard charge here towards the back of Jordan Daly. 3.8 seconds to the good. And with him, he could bring Carlos Calatayud. And if he hits the back of Daly, it could open the door to Carlos behind him. So, you know, we say it time and time again, the least favorable position you want to be in, Jesse, in a three-car sandwich is that guy in the middle that would be Dixon Chen.
Yeah, you really don't want to be the guy in the middle. You don't mind being the guy in the middle when you're the aggressor and you have that much more speed than somebody else. But the problem is in GT3 with balance of performance, and especially a racetrack like Paul Ricard, That's never going to be on the cards, really. So you don't ever want to be in the middle. We call that the sucker hole, or sucker if you want to be in the middle of the group, because likely you're the one that's going to be held up. You're the one that's going to get passed. You're going to be in third place, and then hopefully you get to make the move yourself. But then it all starts over. It's a vicious cycle. Racing certainly is. Dixon Chen, though, is going to have to get a move on. 3.4, nearly 3.5 seconds to gap. Jordan Daly in 8th place. Daly is not really gaining on Andy Boardman, so could Chen get it done? Here's a race replay of how he got some of the positions back. Dixon Chen, that is.
I think that was Malho with Dixon Chen. I think our broadcaster Stewie trying to figure out why Dixon Chen ended up so far down. I mean, looking at it logically, he's not hit anybody massively. His pit stop was, you know, a little bit long, should we say, 20 seconds, but no way should it have shoved him that far down, we believe. So possibly a spin or an incident that we've just not caught on our broadcaster.
Yeah, everyone here, by the way, a little peek behind the curtain, is scratching their heads trying to figure out what went on. We originally thought Stevens took tires in the 77. We don't believe now that that's what happened. We believe that they had to take a extra amount of fuel that most other cars didn't have to take. We're trying to figure out what happened to Dixon Chen. The fastest car on the racetrack was up into P2. It was 4 seconds or thereabout off of Hugo Colon. Then in the pit lane, that minute 6 second stop, that's what our broadcaster studio is showing you. That's the only contact we had for the car. So something, either they took tires, but even a minute 6 is quite long. Oh my goodness, completely sideways. Rebound Racing's Nico Kumpu as they just about save it, and they're still going to get a look down the inside of Podu.
Yeah, no idea how that one happened, but Kumpu with lightning fast reactions, the Finnish driver out of the fast sweeping right-hander, just about held it on and managed to fire up the inside of Budor Budu into the double right-hander afterwards. Really brave move there. Of course, you see sideways moments out of that corner, and you think instantly this guy's not going to have the run on me to the next one. But yeah, the Ferrari just about keeping it under wraps. We know the 488 Jesse has the kind of bouncing rear end syndrome. I spoke to Samir Foch after an event the other day, and they call it the bouncing donkey rather than the prancing horse.
Well, I'm going to stay out of that conversation altogether. Nico Kumpu able to get one of those spots back, and it isn't over yet. Hauser in front as well. Could get at least one more spot here if you're lucky. Failing light, 4 minutes left of the race, just after 10 p.m. Ensign time. And the leader of the race, Hugo Colot, who's led every lap tonight in the pit lane.
Yeah, Hugo, all he's got to do, of course, is drop a litre of fuel in, providing he's taken enough at the beginning, get the car off the jacks, the race esport team, get him on his way down the pit lane, and out hopefully he comes into some nice clean air, keeping it nice and simple, and just finds his way perfectly around the circuit as the number 14 does clear his stop. Indeed, the little orange one turns to a green blank, and on his way he goes. One car ahead of him, the 555 on the circuit of Matthew Kingston Lee. So, of course, Kingston Lee still to pit. Pozniakov in the 86, just coming onto the Mistral straight, bottom left hand of the circuit map. Again, still yet to pit. So, providing Kolot keeps it nice and clean, he should, in theory, gain. And, of course, with just 1 minute 30 on the pit window, we should see your last two cars come down the lane this lap. And very late indeed, cuts it very fine. 1 minute 54-ish a lap. You end up spinning, you're going to miss your pit window, Jesse.
Yeah, that's the thing I was talking about earlier, is a lot of times, especially if you're playing with house money like Hugo Colot is, the reason they would have probably came in a little bit early is because you never know. You could hit a curb wrong. We've seen it happen a couple of times tonight, and it all goes wrong as the Ferrari goes to the inside. Kumpu trying to make it happen here in the final corner. They're not going to get the pass done, but it is going to be a drag race down the front straight. Budu still in the background here, might have something left to say about this. The BMW clearly pulls out ahead. A little bit of extra speed, had the longer run off the corner. Still looking aggressive. Kumpu going around the outside. Is he going to try the over-under move? He might. Might it be a double under-over move? It sure is. Here he comes again. Kumpu does not have the legs at this particular juncture as Hauser's able to keep that position. Budu drawn back into this battle now as well.
Yeah, Porsche certainly suckered back in, and this could be, what happens with these guys that battle all the time. And Hauser very wide there. Not sure what happened, whether he was touched or not by Kumpu, but Kumpu up into P15, Hauser down to 16, and it meanwhile brings in Tudor Budu, being told on my ear, no contact logged on our broadcasters. So great to see some fair racing there. Hauser maybe just getting caught out on where he had to brake and turn to keep that Ferrari behind him. And now comes Tudor Budu, wiper flapping in the middle of the windscreen in the wind tonight here at Paul Ricard. Still 11 kilometers an hour, quite high for an ACC race. Budu to the inside, just can't get the legs on that BMW. I think the BMW is already pulled clear as Budu slots back in to take the wider racing line through the corner to try and maximize everything he can. And the Porsche, of course, just over a minute to go. Next time by the line will probably be this guy's last lap. So be very careful as Pozniakov and Kingston Lee have both served their pit stops. Kingston Lee, I believe, is on the road, so keep your eyes on Sector 1 timings to find out where he is. Our overlay currently reads him as P9. Dixon Chen jumping him along with Jordan Daly. Manages to keep Carlos Calatayud behind him, of course. If you remember, those two guys were locked in their own fight before Carlos brought it down pit lane, so a little bit of loss there, maybe with Dixon Chen, the fight he had with him, as Pozniakov very wide. Be very, very careful, Pozniakov, especially this late in the race. Of course, we don't know how many, how many track cuts these guys have. They could already be teetering on the edge of, 3, and you get one more, you're coming down pit lane, and with 15 seconds to go, that is not what you want to do, Jesse.
No, it's not. This is likely going to be the last lap of the race, as the leader will come to get the checkered flag. Everyone's going to have one more shot at this. Jordan Daly has closed up a 2-second gap thereabout on Boardman, though it has widened out now. It's under a second, just a sector ago. A couple of other cars have close gaps as well. Kingston Lee and Kaladian. Pozniakov here trying to make a move, a little bit desperate, trying to go around the outside. Maybe was that a fake there, just a little bit to try and mess with Pedro Marquez. But Hugo Calat for Race Esport Team has absolutely dominated this entire championship, netting a 4th win here today in 5 attempts. Absolutely incredible.
Yeah, incredible performance from the Belgian driver, and Marquez there just about doing enough on Pozniakov to fend him off to the last turn. So Kolot wins, Malho in second. That would probably be post pending any penalties. Of course, your championship 1-2. Marquez in third, Pozniakov in fourth. Shipston comes through in fifth, Boardman in sixth, Daly eventually seventh. Dixon Chen managed to find his way back up to 8th with the fastest lap. Matthew Kingston Lee dropped down to P9 after his pit stop and held it. Carlos Calatayud with a top 10 finish just about there. Chris Downey, of course, with the 10-second penalty. Watch where he falls down to once all cars have crossed the line. For now, Matt Stevens 12th, Podvachok 13th. Les Stevenson should, in theory, take your 14th. Nico Kumpu just ahead. You see, just going to drivers right there through the last turn for P15. Hubert Hauser holds off Tudor Budu for P16. Budu in 17th. And then next down the road, we should have indeed Cassiaro, a racer. Koiret just ahead of Whittle here, and Whittle with a big penalty served in his pit stop finds himself down to P21. And Gajda unfortunately didn't manage to take the checker, and neither did Roskam on the last round. But Jesse, what a great race that was. That, despite a short number of people, should we say, just about 23 cars or so, it was still very action-packed all race.
Thoroughly entertaining. We had podium fights, seeing Dixon Chen get up there at the very beginning of the race, climbing through the top 5. Porsches fighting each other at the ends of the Mistral Straight and into Sector 3. It's always brilliant. Battles inside the top 10, battles at the back of the field as well. Some perplexing pit strategy as well, all added to what was a highly drama-filled but very, very entertaining series finale, fitting of the Euro Masters season.
Yeah, definitely so. And of course, the Euro Masters champion. Hopefully, we see a few championship results pending with Stewie coming through shortly. But of course, a dominant performance from one man from Belgium, of course, Hugo Kolot. Lowest finish, second all season, while taking every single race win. Turn to a quick highlights reel, while Stewie hopefully provides the championship results in a little while. But Very good indeed. Action packed right from the start of the season right to the end. Just look at the scenes. 23 cars doesn't sound like a lot, but when you put them all in one straight, it certainly looks like a lot. And a little bit of a bump from Nico Kumpu off the line. Probably saw him out of place. We didn't actually see that from the helicam. And then, of course, yeah, mistake down into turn three. Not kind of the greatest start, shall we say, to his title fight for the finale. Of course, Downing involved, Cassiaro, Stevens across the line with Gajda, all kicking off on lap one. But, if you did like what you saw, we do have plenty of events over at our website, racerci.com. And of course, Tim Ireland, Monday's admin, announced the next championship, as me and Jesse were talking about earlier, a one-make series with the Maserati MC GT4. So, yeah, not the easiest of cars, should we say, Jesse? And we are guaranteed one wet race at least. So if you do fancy your chances in that one to be king of the GT4, then be sure to sign up over on the website. And of course, exciting times, RCI TV this Friday. I believe we do have our GT3 Season 10. And Sunday this week, of course, the Esports League on Esports Challenge Series on the Sunday. Can't wait for that one either. That's going to be a close fought title if the Kyle Army was anything to go by.
Yeah, and you know what I want to talk about? We got all sorts of racing going on as well. Be back with you, for the Sunday Esports 6 hour challenge as well. John Dalton will be there. I'll be there. Tim Peck and a whole host of the broadcast group will be here. Stewie will be there for the entirety, trying to keep. I always feel like Stewie's a little bit of the babysitter with us. I feel like he's trying to keep us in the playpen, is what his job mostly entails, and thank him for that indeed. But you know what else I want to talk about? A little ACC news that came out in the recent days, and maybe just as early as today as well. Of course, the brand new Ferrari GT3, the 296 GT3 to be exact, coming to ACC. That was announced, and I believe just yesterday or today, the Lamborghini Evo 2 was teased as well. John, it's a great time to be an ACC driver.
Yeah, certainly. So plenty more cars, of course, coming with the 1.9 update. There's a few rumors been floating about after the Q&A over on Reddit. There's been a few rumors kicking about for a few months on what we are getting. Of course, the 296 is confirmed. The Lamborghini was confirmed today in the Evo 2 with a trailer. Of course, rumored in the pipeline is a new Porsche with the 992 that obviously made its debut at NLS, I believe, this weekend. Good performance from it there, and it's had some running and some testing, of course, at Paul Ricard pre-season for the GT World Challenge as well. And we have had rumors of GT2 in the Q&A as well. No official cars teased yet on that one, but of course that could provide much more plentiful action here at RCI TV. And here we go, finally, with your championship standings, of course, pending any post-racing incident, should we say, but it was a pretty clean race from everybody up and down the field. Of course, Hugo Colot takes your Euromasters Season 3 title with 278 points. Rafael Malho coming in second with 239. And then we have a joint tie between Pozniakov and Downing, both on 173, but Pozniakov taking the bottom step of title honours. Tom Shipston gave it a good old stab, 150 points in P5. Pedro Marquez in sixth with 139. Nico Kumpu with 134. Andy Bourman with 133. Joe Dorber with 126. And Matthew Kingston Lee with a strong finish in that last race, 115 points. Rounding out your top 10 for three. Cassiaro managed 113 points, definitely found his groove later on in the season. Matt Stevens, RPMS, with 106. Polovchuk with 99. Daly with 96. Dan Edvardson, I feel if he definitely attended a few more races, could have certainly been mixing it up in the top 10, but 94 points for the Dane there. Andre Dixon Chen, the man of mystery tonight with 93. Not sure how he got so far down, but I'd be interested to find out on that one. Pavel Gajda with 80, Tudor Budu with 70, John Eraser with 64, and our very own RCI Les Stevenson with 60 points. Rounds out your top 20. And of course, moving on to page 3, Richard Withall takes 21st. Koirat joint tie with Calateud with 51. And then we have another joint tie between Hubert Hauser and Rudy Filmalter with 49 points each. Charlie Spence with 32, and finally Roscam bottom score with 29 points. Everybody, of course, with a dash next to their name has signed out of the championship, and of course, any points at all come the end of it. But what a fantastic season that has been, Jesse. It's been an honor to have you here for the last round with me. Of course, Callum Kerwin couldn't be in attendance tonight, unfortunately, so that's why you're hearing a little bit of a different cast than you're normally used to on a Monday. But hopefully next Monday's championship, the Maserati GT4 can provide just as much action as the Euromasters.
Oh, it absolutely will. The Maserati Cup One Make Championship. It is going to be exciting, thrilling. There's going to be cars backwards. There's cars going to be off into sand traps. There's also going to be some fantastic old school racing. Congratulations to Hugo Colot winning this championship. 4 out of 5 wins. The lone time they didn't win was a lowly second place. Should really work on their consistency, I think, John. But beyond that, congratulations. We saw him celebrating in our YouTube chat. Well deserved indeed. What a championship and what a season it was.
Yeah, almost like the perfect season, like we said earlier in the broadcast. Of course, the lowest finisher being second. You can't nothing to sniff out there. That's a very solid performance. The only consistency he could have, of course, improved on is take a clean sweep of first places throughout the season. But a well-deserved title, Euromasters Season 3 champion, of course, goes to Hugo Colot, and can't wait to see the Twitter post later on the team's page celebrating his success here at RCI. And of course, lastly, just before we go, a quick reminder of all of our partners that, of course, make things possible here. AK Esports, Driver61.com, Fanatec, DigitalMotorsports.com, and Go Setups. You can, of course, check out all those guys down below in our description, where you can also find links to all of our social media, including Discord, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, where you can find out all the stuff that goes on behind the scenes at RCI, such as our esports team and what they are running in. Recently taking venture in virtual endurance masters, hosted by another LFM, happened just last weekend. And if you're curious to know where they're finishing anywhere else in their calendar, then be sure to drop us a follow on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. But for tonight, that will be all, I believe, from the Euromasters Season 3. A wonderful race, very clean by all the drivers. Of course, Hugo Colot taking the honours at the end there. So, from myself, John Dalton, from Jesse Lee, it's been wonderful having you back for another broadcast. And as always, well done to Stewie behind the cameras and all of our live stewards that have been in attendance tonight. We thank you all for watching. Of course, none of this would be possible without you guys watching at home. So we bid you farewell. We hope to see you on another broadcast here at RCI TV on Twitch and YouTube on Friday. Take care of yourselves.